Plans to send strategic bombers on regular patrol in America's backyard. David Martin is looking into this.
Russian bomber patrols over the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico would be very significant, U.S. military officers say, something the Russians have never done before. During the Cold War, Soviet aircraft flew reconnaissance missions there, but never bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Once in 2008 and again in 2013, blackjack bombers flew to Nicaragua and Venezuela, but those were window dressing for visits by high-level Russian delegations. When the Russian defense minister announced the bomber patrols earlier this week, he linked them specifically to tensions over Ukraine, in effect saying, if you meddle in our backyard, we'll meddle in yours. U.S. military officers say the patrols would not pose a military threat, since the bombers and their refueling tankers could be tracked as they came down through Greenland and Iceland and across the Atlantic, leaving plenty of time to scramble jet fighters. A real attack by Russian bombers would most likely come over the North Pole, the shortest distance between the two countries. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia stopped flying long-range bomber patrols and did not resume until 2007. Currently, they fly about 10 patrols a year off the U.S. coast, once coming within 50 miles of California. U.S. jets routinely intercept them. There's no law against it, so long as the bombers don't enter U.S. airspace.
The United Nations Children's Fund says over 1.7 million Ukrainian children have been affected by violence in the east of the country.
And they are being slaughtered, and their military is being shattered. This is a shameful chapter. I'm ashamed of my country, I'm ashamed of my president, and I'm ashamed of myself that I haven't done more to help these people. It is really, really heartbreaking. Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine not to be part of Europe, and he is succeeding in doing so. He's putting enormous pressure on the Baltics, not to mention Moldova, and continued occupation of Georgia as well. This is really a dark chapter in the history of our alliance.
I
know when the world will end. The sun will turn into a white dwarf. Other things will happen too. Now, that will be the end of the world as we know it. So if this is what you mean by the end of the world, it will come even sooner. But I'm not afraid. It's inevitable.
And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them.
Russia has deployed to Crimea a number of short-range missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. That's according to a representative of the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff. The Iskander missiles were developed by the Soviet Union at the end of the Cold War. Independent military analyst Dmitry Timchuk said last month that the rockets had been recently seen on Ukraine's eastern border. Analysis conducted by the Ukraine Crisis Media Center concluded the missiles have a range of up to 500 kilometers, making European cities including Helsinki, Tallinn, Riga, Vilnius and Warsaw within striking distance. Each complete missile unit features 108 soldiers and can hit targets with an accuracy of 5 meters.
on the verge of is World War III, thermonuclear World War III. And that's the big problem we have to try to defeat. Now, there are other problems.
And don't get me wrong. I consider Republicans patriots who love this country just as much we do.
Tell us about your plan for nuclear war with Russia.
I'm sorry. Who's that back there? What the heck are you talking about?
The intention here is to provoke a confrontation with Russia, who is on the brink of bringing the world into a thermonuclear war that could exterminate the entire human race, trying to provoke Russia, which lost 20 million people in World War II fighting fascism. We are on the brink of a global thermonuclear war, and potentially also against China, since, of course, you're dealing here with the entire Eurasian continent. Remember, Kiev was once the capital of Russia. Half that country was part of Russia. Crimea was Russia until, I think, 1954, when it was turned over to Ukraine, largely to counter the continuing Nazi forces in the western part of the government. In fact, the people around Stefan Bandera, who led the Nazi forces in collaboration with Hitler in the 1940s, why did he not go to Nuremberg trial? It's because he was picked up by British intelligence after the war, and they continued to use him in operations against Ukraine and against Russia. And it's that network which is being activated today.
Representatives of the new Ukrainian government are already threatening to literally go nuclear if they don't get their way. A deputy from the Svoboda party warns that Kiev could go back on its own constitution and restock its nuclear arsenals within 6 months. RT's Anastasia Churkina reports.
Double standards galore. Washington suffers sleepless nights and paranoia when it comes to the nuclear capabilities of countries like Iran.
Iran's nuclear program.
Iran's nuclear program.
Iran's nuclear program.
But the U.S. turns a blind eye when it comes to provocative statements coming out of Kiev. One member of the Ukrainian parliament's ultra-nationalist Svoboda party warned that if Russia doesn't tread carefully, it will be dealing with a nuclear power. That's the rhetoric despite Ukraine signing up to the International Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1994.
Russia warns America, we will respond with nukes. Now, this article is from Paul Joseph Watson, who's been following the developing situation in Russia from the Summer Games to the Syrian conflicts and now this. Addressing the threat posed by plans by the United States to install a missile defense system in Europe, Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin today asserted that Russia would respond with nuclear weapons if it was targeted by conventional American missiles. Now, as you recall, earlier this summer, Russia was playing war games targeting who? The United States of America. Now, I'm not claiming that Russia wants offensive action, but at this point, they are definitely claiming that they are willing and able to defend themselves if they feel threatened.
Roger, we've got 32 targets in track and 10 impacting points. I want to confirm, is this an exercise? Roger, copy. This is not an exercise.
Roger, understand. Major Reinhardt, we have a massive attack against the U.S. at this time. ICBMs. Numerous ICBMs. Roger, understand. Over 300 missiles inbound now.